I am Jessica Logan. I am the founder of Making the Invisible Visible, and I have created an awareness group so we can talk about illnesses whilst educating the world through our interviews, and that is on removing our invisibility cloaks. So it's just taking away what we hide to making it visible to others through our education and our conversations that we'll be having today. Yeah. So today I am joined by...
my name's Ellie and I am Miss Teen Diamond Dorset, and I am currently doing my GCSEs and hope to get a journalism apprenticeship when I leave school next May.
Oh wow, so you going into year 11 when you return back to school then?
There I am.
And journalism, what type of journalism would you like to write about?
Well, it's more like media and raising awareness of things that aren't normally seen.
So a bit like In the Style are starting to use models with stoma bags and stuff like that. So things that you don't normally see in the normal media at the minute. You want to change that.
Yeah.
That's really good. That's inspiring. And hopefully next year you can start that course and go above and beyond and just make a difference to the world.
Yeah.
So behind me, so you're a pageant girl, you can also see my sash. So I am Ms West Midlands for Royal International Miss UK, and I'm taking part next year in July. I believe yours is next year as well. What date's yours?
No, February, sorry.
February, yeah. So it's all changed a little bit because of COVID. It's all a little bit all over the place, but at least we'll get to go on to the stage next year. So what made you start taking part in pageants?
Well, before I started pageants, I didn't have a lot of confidence after being bullied for like many years, and my sister accidentally entered one, and then I went along to see how it all worked and instantly fell in love with how like accepted you are, and like it was kind of like you'd walked into an alternate universe and I didn't quite know, I didn't expect it.
Yeah, a lot of people have a horrible perception of pageants. It's a wrong perception. They think that you all have to be these stunning Victoria's Secret models, but you don't. We're accepted for the different types of body shapes we have, different races, different backgrounds. So I bet you were really inspired to obviously take part in pageants after seeing that.
Yeah.
So have you felt different in pageants because of your illnesses, or have you felt accepted?
I felt like when I'd walked through the door at a pageant, I felt like I left the illness at the door, and like it just wasn't there anymore.
So you feel like you're finally accepted as a normal person.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so we will go on to finding out about your illnesses then and your disabilities. So what are the illnesses and disabilities that you have?
I have diplegic cerebral palsy. So like my brain works harder than the average person's to get signals to the nerves and the muscles to make them work. So basically everything is working faster to make me just like pick up something, for instance. So obviously that's quite exhausting because it's constantly working overtime. But like I manage it by only doing small activities or know my limits.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I struggled with accepting was I couldn't do what I used to do before I became ill.
Yeah.
And that is a big thing us with invisible illnesses and disabilities have to accept. We have to accept that there's a new way of living, so we can't do everything as quickly and the same as we used to. We have to take it easy and accept that you probably have worse days than some of us, don't you? So I bet you have some bad days.
Mine are worse in the winter, because obviously then the weather's colder, so your muscles are generally like it's colder, so they're generally stiffen up easier. But touch wood, I haven't had a flare up for like 18 months because I've been having like the right medication to treat it, and just basically when I was pushing myself to do more, I was causing myself more trouble, because then I would end up having more flare-ups than I would do if I just like let my limits be where they were and just completed the task that I could do to the best of my ability and put all my effort into that, rather than trying to achieve something that was implausible.
Yeah, That's really good advice to give to those with illnesses as well. So to accept your limits. If you do over push yourself, then like for example, me, if I do weeding in the garden, I'll suffer for a week. I know that sounds really silly to a normal person.
Yeah, but for someone with an illness, like it can take it out of you just like going downstairs to get a drink. Maybe you can then have to lie down for like 3 hours just to like recover from it.
And it's really good to know that you've accepted that, because there's still people today that have been living with their illnesses for 20 or so years, can't accept that they can't be what they used to be. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of lucky because it's all I've ever known. Like there were certain adaptations, but because I'd never experienced what an average person was meant to do, it was just knowing what my body could do and what it couldn't do.
Which is still really important to understand. And as you probably, do you compare yourself to other people in your year at all?
I used to, but now I just see that like comparing myself is just kind of a waste of my own energy, because everyone is gonna, like, people could look at me and think that I'm better than them. Like it's just a natural trait of any human to look at another person and compare themselves. But I think it can get exhausting for your mental and physical health to just compare everyone you meet and just like judge them based on how different you are or how similar you are.
Definitely, you are giving honestly the best advice. That's something I've always struggled with. I always walk into a room and compare myself to others.
Yeah,
but we're our own person. We can't compare to someone that's completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love your advice. So what medication do you take for your disability then?
I have 600 milligrams of gabapentin, which help with like the tremors, and just like general like pain. And then I have baclofen, which controls like the pain, stopping the stiffness. But I also have to have oxybutynin to control my weak bladder, because without it, I don't have much control.
Okay, so you've got a few medications, but at least you found something that works for you. So do you feel that they do?
Yeah, because like before, I was like, they've been since I was 9 trying different things. So like it's been a constant mixing everything around to see what everything fit together. And this has been the best kind of like mixture that they've given me, where the side effects haven't needed another tablet to counteract the side effects of another one. So now I feel like I'm taking them purely for one simple thing rather than to counteract something else.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people that, so my mum has to take a counteracting drug for a medication she takes. So I think if you can find one that doesn't cause those side effects, which you obviously have, which is amazing, it means that you taking tablets isn't great anyway. So at least you're just taking the tablets that you need.
Yeah.
So when did you get diagnosed?
Well, when I was 9, my mum basically fought doctors like ever since I was born, because the developmental stage weren't hit, like even attempting to try and sit up, I wasn't doing it. And then I spent like 6 weeks in hospital, and they were just basically kept coming back with like, there's nothing we can find that's wrong with her. And it was so frustrating because it was like, I felt like I was being called a liar. It's like, I don't want to be sat in this hospital. It's the last place I want to be. And then we went to Burton Children's Hospital, and this one like specialist just saw me walk and just knew straight away what it was, and it was such a relief to like finally get listened to.
I bet you just felt, so it's like 9 years of not being listened to, and your mum as well. That must have had a massive impact on the family.
Yeah, it was, because it was obviously like there's still a little part of you that wished there was nothing wrong and it was just going to get better, when they were saying like she'll grow out of it. Obviously there's a little part of you, being human, you're gonna like, there's a little part of hope that like maybe they're right. But once you get that diagnosis and you read like the symptoms, and it feels like the last piece of the puzzle's finally there that you've been searching for.
You get a bit of relief, don't you, that you finally know that you weren't imagining things, I guess.
Yeah.
So I bet your mum was a little bit relieved that she knew how to actually deal with your health as well.
Definitely, yeah.
And how has it affected your family?
Well, like it doesn't really affect us day to day unless I'm having a bad flare up or I need to go into hospital, because my mum's the only driver and she's my sole carer, so she has to be at every appointment. So obviously then it's trying to strategize, finding ways to get around it and keep a like normal routine. But because the flare ups are being held at bay by the medication now, they're happening less. So obviously we still have like a disaster plan just in case, but like you haven't had to use it for a while, which is really good because like it makes us feel more like a normal family. Obviously, you know, no family is normal, but like, you know, that the flare-ups aren't happening as much, so the family unit is staying pretty normal.
Just means you can carry on with your day-to-day life, I guess, without the worry of having to go into hospital continuously.
Yeah.
Was you in hospital quite a lot then before you got diagnosed?
When I was first diagnosed, because they put me on diazepam when I was in hospital for 6 weeks, and I was allergic to that, and it made me really ill. So then they couldn't use that, and they then had to rack their brains to find a different solution to give me something, which is why they had to do the baclofen and gabapentin combination, because just the baclofen wasn't working on its own because it didn't quite stop the tremors, whereas the gabapentin does stop them.
Has Burton got a specialist there that deals with your illness?
They are the cerebral palsy specialists that the operation in America that that was on the NHS but now can only be done in the States, that like can help with the stiffness, and I think it's a muscle relaxant that they inject into the spine to help with the stiffness and like the muscle control.
How long does that last?
Well, I think it was like 5 to 10 years, but the actual operation itself is like £40,000 plus like physio, and it's not something we have just lying around.
Wow.
Yeah,
a lot of money.
Lots of money.
A lot of money. But if you can live every day as you are now with your medication, I think going through an operation is it's mentally and physically challenging.
I used to dwell on the fact that like it was £40,000 and like that's not something people could just like find out of thin air. But now it's just like, do I really need it if I'm controlling it? Like, what's the point in spending like 2 years in the States if I don't really need to?
Yeah, you sound really positive, and I love that about you. Honestly, you are coming across as such a positive person, which is what you need when you're living with that every day.
Yeah, I feel like if you make more battles for yourself by like being down about it, like you can't. There's something you can do. You can't fix it. It's not going to go away. So being in denial or pushing it away or getting angry about it, it doesn't do anything. If you just accept it and learn how to cope, like it's better for you and everyone around you as well.
Yeah, because when you're feeling down about it, I remember when I was first diagnosed, I was mentally drained and I was taking it out on everyone around me, which isn't nice because they're going through that change as well. It doesn't just affect you, it affects those around you. So it's definitely best to be positive. And it is hard. It's not easy to be positive, but as soon as you start accepting, it does help you. So it sounds like you've done everything that you need to do, and you're just living your best life as you can, not comparing yourself to how that others live their best life.
Yeah.
So in regards to other people, have you received any discrimination from anyone?
The thing that used to bother me the most, it doesn't really bother me now, is like when you go in a disabled toilet, but I haven't got my wheelchair with me, those kind of looks. When I was younger, like it would frustrate me. Or like when my mum would be maybe pushing me in my wheelchair because I couldn't do it, and rather than speaking to me, they'd speak to my mum, and I didn't like that because I was like, I can speak, but I'm being told that I can't speak because you see the wheelchair and assume that like I can't. But now I will just say like I can answer. Or like I can answer your question, rather than like I'd prefer it if people spoke to me rather than like kind of ignoring me, make me feel invisible.
Yeah, definitely. And have anyone thanked you sorry, I can't even get my words out now. Has anyone thanked you for actually opening up to them?
I think most people, because it's such a varied scale, like most people have only ever seen the severe end. They still don't quite understand it, and so trying to explain that cerebral palsy is the umbrella term, but there are lots of different kind of routes to it. It's not just kind of one, you've got cerebral palsy and that's it. You get your individual kind of, it's not just a straight line diagnosis. There's a lot of different like ways to explain it that most people don't understand unless they've been sitting in front of like consultant since they were 9 and hearing it, every 6 months. So I think as much as I try and explain it as best I can, it's still quite not recognised or not understood.
Yeah. Is it a little bit like autism where there's different spectrums?
Yeah, so like quadriplegic cerebral palsy is like the severe kind of like you struggle to do most tasks, and then there's the one before mine, which I can't think of, like it's like a really long name, that's like just kind of small things, but it's not, it's kind of, you can have symptoms of more than one, whereas rather than just having like a straight, even having one of the roots to it, that can still get more complicated, and that's not like still a straight line diagnosis.
So a little bit like a crazy family tree. And they don't medical terms, they never give them easy names to say.
They don't. And it's like I've learned to say them now, and like all the tablets and stuff, I've learned to say them, but explaining to somebody else, like somebody completely new, and they don't expect you to know it all. Like I could tell you my whole medical history from like birth to now, and it's just something I've just memorized, so like I can repeat it, whereas other people, like, because they haven't maybe experienced it, they don't understand that it's just something you have to learn, because you don't want someone to have to hold your hand all the time to like tell your medical history.
You sound very independent.
Yeah, I am very independent.
That's a good trait to have. It really is. So we'll have a look at the positives then. So you sound like a very, very positive person anyway. So this is going to be really good for you. And I bet you've got a lot to talk about. So what have you achieved despite you living with this condition?
So like all throughout school, like I was told like if I was told I couldn't do something, that pushed me to want to do it even more. So like there have been countless award ceremonies for like the determination, and like even like raising money. Like at my school in just before Christmas, I did a charity cake sale for the Diamond Charities and for Scope to raise awareness for them, because they kind of advocate for children with cerebral palsy. So like even then, like I was getting called an inspiration. For me, it was just something that I would do anyway. Like I don't need a certificate or a trophy to tell me that like I'm doing great. It's just I would rather be seen as me rather than this inspirational person, because I haven't let it get me down.
You are inspirational, though, so don't
Yeah.
Don't put yourself down. You do deserve awards at times, but I do get what you mean, that you want to be treated well, that's just your nature, that you want to help others, I guess.
Yeah.
So is there a quote that you live by to stay positive?
I think it's to never let the things you can't do stop you from doing the things that you can. Like if you let the things that you can't do control your life, then you're holding yourself back for what you could achieve. And I think that the best thing you can do for you is to think, well, I can't change it. There's nothing I can do about it. So if I do what I can do, I could make a real difference in this way, rather than looking at the list of things that maybe you can't do.
Which dwells on your mental health massively if you start focusing on the negatives constantly. So it sounds like you have got a lot of positivity in your life. So I bet you've got support from your family as well, which help with that.
Yeah, it does.
Is there anything on your bucket list that you really want to do?
I think on my bucket list is like, it's not really a bucket list, but it's just kind of like to achieve things that people have always told me I couldn't, like getting through all of education. So like getting through all of primary school in mainstream education, that was on my bucket list, and I've completed that. Getting through all of secondary school in mainstream, like by May next year, I'm determined to have done all of year 11 in a mainstream school. So it's like rather than setting big milestones that are harder to reach, I think for me, smaller milestones that are closer gives me more determination, because I can then set more little goals.
And you're still achieving. It doesn't matter how big the goal is, an achievement is an achievement.
Yeah, it's like when the doctors say, like, every time we've been to like the 6 month or the 12-month or like consult, they say like, oh, we expect by this age you'll be completely immobile, and like it was 15 and I was 15 in July and I'm still completely, like, for me, meeting them, like defeating their odds is like the biggest milestone that I could reach.
That is absolutely amazing. Honestly, you just made me smile to know that you beat that odds, that you're still there walking.
Yeah.
And it is, I suppose it's hard for them to predict where you're going to be in the future.
Yeah, and like I don't hold it against them; it's their job, and it's such a guessing game that like they have to like factor in like growth and everything else. So they've made that scientific decision, and it's not quite worked out. Like it's not a perfect science, and I never expect them to be like a perfect number. But like for me to be able to say, I've met this milestone. How can we go forward now to make sure I reach the next one? Is helpful to like it gives them the knowledge to know that other kids can be helped and don't need to be like the milestones can be set a little bit bigger.
Yeah. And you've got something to aim towards as well now. Like you've got potentially end of a year or 2 years or so on. You've got something else to try and beat the odds of, which helps you stay positive, I guess.
Yeah, it was like at the beginning of year 9, I was determined to do enough physio to get rid of my double leg, like full length leg splints on both legs, and by the Christmas of year 9, I'd done it.
Wow, that's a really big achievement.
Yeah, because I never thought I'd be out of splints, and they aren't the most comfortable things. And I couldn't wear the shoes that I wanted or the clothes. So that part did get me down. The splints is the only part. There's always just been like something that I struggle to accept because of there's no real way to hide them or like. So that's the only real thing that has ever affected me. But when I got rid of them, I was like, it was such a relief.
That is amazing. Honestly, you are so inspiring hearing all this. You should be proud of yourself.
I am proud, but in the same way, it's just like I don't realize all the achievements I've made until like I look back at all the trophies and certificates and realize that I actually did it. It just doesn't sink in at the time that like it's actually me that's done it. It's like I was elected for prefect and never thought I was going to get it because of a school council, and I'd only been at my new school like 6 months, and I was like, "There's no way." And then like the head teacher phones you personally to say you've got it. You think just like how you almost want to say to the doctors like, "I want to know how this has happened. Like, can you show me the science that proves why this has happened?"
We never know sometimes. Sometimes there's not always an answer, but
no,
if you've achieved it, it's something that you obviously you need to reward yourself for, which you do. You're positive about it.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to others that live with a condition?
I would say that you shouldn't let it hold you back, because I almost did when I was first diagnosed, and it was just you look back on the first year for me where I was constantly fighting it and didn't want to believe it, and it's just like you rather than like looking about it negatively, you could have seen like this is your way that you could change children's lives like in the future. So by listening to the doctors and doing all the tests and like studying just the genes, I think I can help somebody else to not have to suffer as badly as I did in the beginning to have it diagnosed, so that the help is there like straight away and that it's not such a losing battle in the beginning then.
What is the average timescale for a diagnosis of it?
It depends. So because I got stuck, the hospital didn't believe that having a lack of oxygen had actually done any damage. So I think they left it out of my mum's notes, and so it was just brushed under the carpet then. But I think if you come out like and have to go into like, is it the NICU, then they obviously can then put it down as infants. But if it's kind of not seen straight away and doesn't develop and it doesn't show it in newborn when they do all the tests, that like it's then seen as just slow development or just being a lazy baby. But because my mum did child development at A level, she understood, like, even though she was young, there was something wrong. Like when a baby is not even attempting to do anything, she just knew.
I think a lot of mothers have that motherly instinct that they know something's up.
Yeah.
And also us personally, when we become, so like myself, when I became diagnosed, I knew I was unwell before then.
Yeah.
We sort of know our own bodies, or we know our children's bodies, and we know something's wrong.
Like it was confusing in the beginning, like before, because I didn't understand why my legs were just not, they would just seize up, and then I was not being listened to and felt like I was like fighting a losing battle. And then when you get this diagnosis and see the symptoms, it all makes sense why the doctors did struggle, because if you look at the facts that they had with the symptoms, they could easily be just mistaken for just a lazy baby at the time.
Yeah, so it is easy to place the blame on doctors, but sometimes everyone's different. So I know from my IBD diagnosis to someone else's, my journey has been completely different. So sometimes it is hard to diagnose.
Yeah.
But you've got a diagnosis now, which is amazing, and you can go from there onwards, really.
Yeah, and I think also holding a grudge isn't the best thing that you can do for your own sanity, like blaming them and saying that like it's their fault, because it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to make it go away. Like they are doctors and they've trained in it, but then they're human, and new illnesses and disabilities are always going to come along and stump doctors. Like that's never going to change. So if you can help your illness be more recognised, then it helps those that are suffering from more rare diseases be recognised by doctors, so that they can get the help that they deserve to raise awareness for them, as well as people that come after them.
Definitely, yeah, because with a lot of rare diseases, it's the so crossing out of other ones. So they'll say you haven't got this, you haven't got that, and then they try and find what they've got. So definitely. So pageant journey then, just because I want to come back onto pageants, because you are a pageant girl. What are your what's your goal in the pageant industry?
Well, my goal was just to, like, in the beginning was to build up my confidence, but now it's to show people that, like, I didn't believe it at first that I'd be able to do it. So I want to show people that are reigning queens after me that if I could do it, then so could you. Like, they can do it as well. And I think that once you start believing in your own potential, that like you can achieve more than you can ever imagine.
Confidence always shines as well. So if you're confident in yourself, it always shines on that stage.
Yeah.
So hopefully, fingers crossed, in February we might see a crown on your head.
I would love the crown, but for me, like, the crown would just be the icing on the cake. I've had such an amazing time with Diamond. Like, that I just feel like that would just be the icing on the cake. But I was doing it purely to show everyone, like, to prove myself wrong as well, that I can do it. But obviously, a sparkly crown to add to collection is always quite good.
It's always nice just to have something to just pop on your head and just go, oh, this is mine. And I deserve it. But yeah, I think with pageants, the one thing I've enjoyed the most is the journey. It is the friendships, the helping charities.
Yeah.
It's not just getting onto that stage and being the prettiest girl on that stage.
That's what the stereotypes on that. These kind of beautiful supermodels that have had that aren't doing charity work. It's kind of it's kind of like demeaning to all the charity work that pageant girls do, because it's like, just because you can't see it on a reality TV show, it doesn't mean it's not getting done. And it's kind of like, you want to change people's perceptions so they can understand that this is like a way that the world can change, and accept that not everyone is the same, but that doesn't mean that they can't be accepted into a society where they feel accepted and can be themselves without feeling judged or discriminated.
That's definitely one thing I love about pageantry, that we are all accepted for who we are.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like to share about your journey or your story with invisible illnesses?
I can't think of anything. No, yeah. I've said everything that I've written down in my notes, so I think I'm pretty happy.
So that's a tick then. I know you were worried about that.
Yeah.
So what's your plans this weekend then?
Pardon?
What's your plans this weekend?
This weekend I have got to finish some of my business coursework ready for September, and hoping that the weather stays nice, so I can go out and.
Are you studying business then at school?
Yeah, as a GCSE.
Oh wow! I didn't know they did it as a GCSE.
Yeah, it's not like an exam. It's all like coursework, which I prefer anyway, because I tend to like, the pressure gets to me in an exam, even in like a separate room. So like coursework where I'm just sat with a laptop and typing it up, and just takes me like maybe an hour to complete it all is better than sitting in an exam because like I panic and everything's just like, I can't remember. Like I knew what I was going to say before I went in, and then my brain's just like, no idea.
You just get a mind blank.
Yeah.
What else are you studying?
Catering, geography, and then obviously English, maths, and science.
So hopefully that will help towards your journalism.
Yeah, I've already looked at like apprenticeships and stuff for next year because it's like I don't want to be. Some people are pushing it under the carpet and just saying they'll think about it in like next year. And it's like if you be one of the front runners and like think about it now, then you're more likely to get the position that you want or like that course that you want because they've been persistent and like followed it until you actually went there, which is what I'm doing rather than waiting until May when the application's open and then just like bombarding them with emails all the time.
I think you're more likely to exceed your expectations as well if you aim higher than just going, it will just happen.
Yeah, but I think I'd rather me work for it and it happen rather than sitting and saying I want everything to fall into my lap into place because I think living with an illness or disability teaches that nothing is ever going to fall into place in a straight line, and sometimes you're going to have to pick up the pieces and put them back together so that you can then navigate through rather than expecting just the world to fall at your feet and you just be able to navigate through.
Definitely. Couldn't say it any better myself. I think if you put in the hard work, you do get the achievements that you want.
Yeah.
So that is the end of the little interview. It was about 30 minutes, so not really little, but we have got a lot of information about cerebral palsy, which is really good for people. When we post this, they can start understanding what it is and how it affects you. Mm-hmm. So I would like to thank you for being the first person. I do apologise if there's any little tweaks to the videos.
Right.
They're not going to be perfect to begin with. It's brand new, just a little bit like pageantry. You grow as it happens. But yeah, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.